And once you learn to travel across dimensions, that's when you realize that it's part of your right as a human being, and you start to embrace it, you start to learn it, and that's when you start awakening. And that's the purpose of this life for me, for people to awaken into the higher realities. And so how do you do that? Well, you do that through experiencing something that does not belong to this world, but it's higher, such as dimensions.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing, and I have an incredible guest tonight. We're delving deep into dimensional shifts, and he is an astral projection teacher and master in all things dimensional. Arcturus is here. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you for having me, San.
I really appreciate spending time with you, brother. I synchronized with you almost immediately when I saw you on Jeff's podcast, and it's a beautiful thing. There's this rippling appreciation that comes with being able to express and explore the things that you teach. And that just is dear to my heart. So without any further ado, I'm going to step back, and I'd love you to just share with the audience who you are, your background, where you came from. And let's delve into all things dimensional, and let's blow some minds here.
Yeah, thank you. So a little bit about myself. I'm someone who always had an interest for everything that had to do with metaphysics and what the purpose of life was. And when I was a kid, for, I don't know, maybe 9 years of my life, I went to a school that was an Opus Dei school, which is a Christian organization. And while I was there, it was like, the mentality was very narrow-minded. And I always wanted to find out what the meaning of everything was. And I remember I would ask the priests, what's the purpose of life, or what happens when we die, things like that. And they never had the answers, right? And a lot of the curiosities that I had, they never had the answers. So when I was a teenager, just hold on a second, because I have a puppy here and it's biting my ankles. Hold on. So when I was a teenager, I started to experience sleep paralysis, and I didn't know what it was. So I was very scared about that. And I started looking for answers, and that's when I found out about astral projection. And I started training in astral projection from things that I read online. And then I started projecting, and I started practicing. And the moment that I started practicing, I was able to consciously live my physical body. And that's when I realized that everything that I was looking for in life, all the questions that I had, were finally being answered by the things that I saw, that I experienced in the astral plane, which is a superior plane of consciousness. And I would talk about this with my parents, with friends, and everybody was just telling me that I was crazy, that I was imagining these things. But these things were very real, and they became more real when I started to meet people in the astral world. I remember that I met a girl once when I was, flying around, because you would see people in the astral world, but they were not always conscious. And at times I didn't know if, they were, I probably figured that they were people who were sleeping and dreaming and that couldn't see me because they were not seeing the astral reality, but they were seeing their dreams. Until one day I found out my first astral traveler, a girl who not only saw me, but she called me. And so we started having a conversation in the astral world. And I wasn't taking her serious because I didn't know if she was a projection of my subconscious. And later on, like 1 month later, I had a job, and basically they introduced me to her, and they said, well, she's going to be your coworker. And the first thing she told me is like, I know you. And I'm like, really? Yes. What do you know about astral projection? And I'm like, yes. Why? Because I met you this one time. And then she started talking about the conversation that we had, and it's like, whoa, so that was you, and it was real, you know. And
that confirmation, my brother, that's the thing that captures people's attention, that it goes beyond what you're speaking of when you're like, oh, people were telling me I'm crazy, I'm making this up in my imagination, but then that validation makes it very real for you.
Yeah, exactly. So that was like the first big validation that I received in the astral world. And so it just changed my life, because I realized that life was not limited to what we have here, to the physical world. And I also started figuring out the possibilities, the unlimited possibilities that we have in our existence. I stopped being afraid of death, and life changed forever for me, because after that I just couldn't have a normal life. I started to try to escape from the matrix, and that's when I started to look into spirituality. So yeah, that's a little bit of my background. And as I was telling it, as I was mentioning in Jeff Mara's podcast, that drove me into an esoteric society, also known as mystic, like a mystic society.
Yeah.
And that mystic society then turned into a Buddhist movement.
All right.
And that's what I did for 15 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's the parallels, as I'm a Taoist priest, so the parallels of the mysticism with Buddhism or Taoism could be paralleled, or it could be completely opposite. There's a lot of very detailed sort of rituals that we go through in relation to internal alchemy, and the outcome is evident within the 3D reality. I mean, that's really, you and I can understand the magnitude of what we speak of, because it's a dream until it's not. It's, you know what you know until you don't know what you don't know, or you don't know what you don't know until you know what you know. So that validation, that confirmation translates into a different dimension, a lower dimension, that you can go, holy moly, like, I went out there, you met that woman, the universe brought her to this physical reality, and then you met at that level, which gives you another whole eye-opening, like, tangible validation that what you are doing is real.
Yeah, exactly. You said it. It's tangible, because I believe everyone want to experience something out of this world. People want to experience spirituality. And sometimes they don't know where to begin or what spirituality feels like. And I can tell you, it's not like I'm always having like these mystical experiences, but they are part of my life. They happen once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in terms of astral projection, they used to happen every night back then, like years ago. And now I have to do a little bit more effort for these experiences to happen. But I also get other experiences, right? Like sometimes the intuition is very strong, sometimes clairvoyance, sometimes I can see auras, but I'm not always there. It's just like always we are like in the physical world, but we also experience some of the spiritual, some of the mysticism, right?
Yeah, so I'm interested in the esoteric stuff that you do within Buddhism, because the stuff I teach people sort of translates into reality. So, for example, the baseline stuff that I like to teach a lot of my students is to first read auras. And so it's what I call a psychic reading. You read people's mental, emotional, and physical state through the admission of the energy that is transmitted from their physical body. And you just go around measuring their virtue to emotion. And when there's an excess or a deficiency, with the techniques I teach people, you're able to go, hey, guess what? you think this way, you do this thing, you do this, that, you had this, and this. And people are like, how in Tao's name do you know a single thing about me? I've never seen you before. It's been 5 minutes and you have a deeper understanding of me than what I want to share with the world. Like, I have a veil, I keep that veil on, I keep a mask on to deter and elude people to another perception of what I am, but not that inner depth. So what do you speak on going in and out of this stuff after training in it 15 years? What are the staples of like techniques that you use to maintain it?
Well, I think the most important thing about it was learning meditation. I think meditation is very important. I meditate probably almost every day, and that has helped me with my state of mind. But also, we worked a lot on self-observation, right? Like you have to be always attentive of your thoughts, of your emotions in every moment, in every second, because that's how you learn to control yourself in some situations, but also to process experiences correctly, right? Because what I learned was that spirituality was about becoming a better person, evolving. To become a better person, you evolve. And how do you evolve? You have a lot of trials in life. You have a lot of difficult situations, could be. You need to learn how to deal with them, always with a positive vibration. And so, like I was saying, meditation was a big part of that. Attention, constant attention in all of the daily life actions and thoughts and emotions. I also learned about runes, Germanic runes, and that's something that I also practice a lot.
Okay.
I like to go in nature, and I do these positions to bring the power of the runes that get activated. You create the runes, the Nordic runes. You create them with your positions, with your physical body. You try to recreate them, and that gives you certain energies. And another practice that I do a lot is just to go in nature. I think that's like one of the best things you can do. And I like to meditate in nature. And astral projection, that's the main thing that I
yeah. Whoa. I mean, that's the banger right there, in my opinion, the astral projection, because once you are consciously shifting in dimensions, this is effective change. Like that's the evidence and the transition of what we speak of. And that's so powerful what you're talking about. I mean, of course, you say, oh yeah, astral projection, but that's a big one, my friend. That's probably the one that most people will gravitate to find answers for themselves almost immediately once they're able to replicate this type of state of consciousness. And that's really the part where a master like yourself, and you have training programs and how to teach people how to do this. And when we first met over social, we were talking about you have an event every year, or you go out into a certain part of the jungle in Mexico, is it? I'm not sure. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I'm starting with the retreats, and right now the retreat that we have is going to take place in February, from February the 13th to February the 15th. And basically, what we're going to do is that we're going to take people to this temple in the jungle, in the Mexican jungle. And this temple is something out of this world. It's like, it looks like a Indiana Jones set, kind of like you feel like you're Indiana Jones.
Like Aztec type of deal going on there?
No, it's something even more mysterious because,
wow. Okay.
I don't know if you've ever visited the South, like Chiapas, where they have the Mayan pyramids.
No.
If you go there, there's a sign that says that only 20% of what you see, what you see is only 20% of what has been unearthed, Like the majority of the pyramids and everything is buried, right? And so imagine all the wonderful pyramids that you read about, that you see. Those are only 20% of what's there in Mexico. But on top of that, there are things that are even more mysterious, because this temple in the jungle doesn't have pyramids. It has like this very, either it's very ancient, or it just has like this very natural type of design or architecture. So I brought people over there that are clairvoyants, um, and that have been in stone circles in Europe, in monuments all over the world, in Egypt, in different places. And they see this place, they sense the energies, and they say this thing is like one of the most powerful places we've been at. And we think that it's a temple that comes from Lemuria, or from the Atlantis humanity, right? So that's like,
Interesting.
yeah,
So
that's
is
like
it
ancient.
so pyramids are more, that trigram pinnacle of sort of like ascension, whereas this seems, from what I can see, is more square
Yeah.
in nature. So it's very square and rectangle. So what's the correlation between that shape shifting, that generally a square, and I mean, it doesn't diminish the frequency, because the frequency is crazy.
Yeah.
But because it's square in nature, rectangle in nature, it has a different transmission. Not that a triangle versus a square is going to be all knowing or less than. But how would that relate to the experience?
Well, the thing is, we don't know if at any point in this place's history there was a pyramid over there. Um, but like, but
Yes.
what we know is that there are tunnels. So
Yes.
basically, there are doors over there that are, they don't look like doors, but when I was there the first time, I was like, I could sense the door, and I looked at the place, and I was like, the door is there. And then, I didn't tell this to my clairvoyant friends, and they told me the same thing, like, there's a door over there. And then that's when I started talking to the Wixárika shamans of the region. And, I didn't tell them about the door. And they told me, yeah, there's a door there that goes, that leads to the underworld. And that was another thing that I had thought about, and that my friends thought about. It's like, this place is full of caves and tunnels underneath that lead to the inner earth, to what many people call the Agartha, right? And so that's the incredible thing about it, because when you are there, you start feeling this energy that tells you that it's a thin place, like the veil between this world and the fourth dimension is very, very thin. So sometimes we do practice there. I'm not going to tell you that this happens every time, but sometimes you start, you relax, you meditate, you either sit in a meditation position, or you lay down and you wait for the silence. And there are these very mysterious silences in the jungle over there. And then you start hearing footsteps around you. And then you start hearing whispers around you. And, people start feeling also sometimes like a tingling sensation on the body. And sometimes they describe that they feel like there are perhaps like gnomes, like doing surgery on them, like some sort of astral surgery. So people experience a lot of things over there. And I've had the opportunity of visiting the place in the astral world. And what I saw there is that there's still an indigenous peoples living there, like a indigenous tribe, and they still live there, but they live there in the fourth dimension. So those footsteps and those whispers that you can hear sometimes over there are precisely them, that they can perceive you. And since the veil there is very thin, then that's how they perceive you. But if they belong to the fourth dimension, obviously they are, more awakened, their senses are more awakened, so they can easily see you, and us, we can just perceive them, but then you can astral travel and you can see them completely, right?
So,
Yeah.
this is really blowing my mind. So when we first met, I talked about the 12 beings that that they were in a circle, and they were between 3 and 12 feet high, and then one particular one reached 24 feet, and they're bringing out these 3 scrolls. What they're showing me right now is the pyramids that you speak on, that you are looking for, are beneath the ground, but they are formated for the center of your temple in a zigzag formation. So there's a zigzag formation, then you get the temple, then another zigzag formation that would, in essence, if you were to look at it, a macro cycle, like a lightning bolt. Does this make any sense to you?
There are actually petroglyphs about this lightning bolt you're describing. Actually,
this is the stuff that blows my mind, brother, because I love this. They just come to me and go, hey, over here, and I get the information. They give it to me. Does this blow your? It blows my mind. Is it not blowing your mind right now?
Yes, but I talk to a lot of people who also have these perceptions, so it blows my mind. But I'm kind of used to it.
For me, it's like Christmas Day. Every day is Christmas Day. It's like the first time I ever experienced Christmas. It is absolutely mind blowing. But this is the lightning bolt thing is very evident. So you can actually step from front to back. You have the zigzag of pyramids beneath the earth, right? And they are formatted so you have 4 on one side, 4 on the other, and the temple is the centerpiece. And that also is representative in every direction, in all 4 directions.
Yeah, that could be. Actually, we do a lot of works there with the 4 directions, and and so basically, when I go there, I just have this feeling that I have to call for the elements, and I look up on the 4 directions. Actually, it's 4 directions and the 5th one, because I also work with the one above, right? And so the thunder that you're describing, I don't know if it looks like you're describing. Maybe this information is getting to you right now, like underneath. Maybe it's like that. That I haven't had the opportunity yet.
Those pyramids are actually underneath the ground.
Yeah.
And so when you take the center point of the temple as a box, each corner, that is each direction, start in the middle, and then you are going to walk in a 45-degree angle, 207 feet in one direction is the first one on a 45-degree angle. Then if you walk again another 207 feet, there is another one. And if you follow this zigzag, 4 in each direction, which is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
The other thing that I find really interesting is, what's your affinity? Because in your aura right now is Thoth, and you're shape-shifting into Thoth as you're speaking to me, and he's coming out of your aura, and there's a very direct communication between him and you. And how is that related to your belief system and all things?
Well, when I was part of the Mystical Society, we studied a lot about the Egyptian mysteries, and the first experiences that I started having in the astral world were always related to Egypt, because I was always like figuring, okay, if I can go anywhere in the astral world, where do I want to go first? And of course, Egypt was always calling me, and it was like an intuition, And so the first experiences that I had, I saw myself inside pyramids in Egypt. I saw myself going through initiations in secret chambers, and one of the most
secret codes. Right now, he's giving me a code that you use 999 999 999, and he won't stop saying 999. What's the correlation there?
I don't know. Actually, nine is very it's very recurrent in my life. Like I also feel the power of number nine. Everywhere in my, when we get a membership somewhere, there's always a nine. The house was always on number nine, when growing up. So yeah, we even talked about my parents about this, the number nine. So that's the thing that occurs to me right now about any relation. Yeah.
Here's another gift that you may not have opened yet, but he's saying very clearly, because he transmutes through you, your ability to hypnotize people and go deep into their unconscious is almost instantaneous.
Oh,
if you look into their soul in their left eye, you can enter their unconscious very quickly. That's one of the gifts that you have.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'll tell you why, because I didn't know that. But then I started to help people to astral project. And sometimes just people start saying that just by talking to me, they were being able to go out of their bodies that night. And they would tell me like, I talked to you, and for the very first time, I don't know what happened, but I was able to get out of my body. People read my book, and they said the same thing. Like you were able to. I mean, I read your book, and I was able to astral project. And sometimes they see me. They see me in the astral as well, in the dreams. And I'm gonna be honest. I'm not always conscious about that.
Yeah.
But I've been told, for instance, I'm working for this retreat with a good friend of mine who is a astrologist or astrologer. What's the right word?
Astrologist, yeah.
Astrologist. And she's also she works with hypnotherapy. And the same thing happened, that she read my astral chart. We did a few practices with hypnotism, and she told me there was a quality on me that was able to get people into trance states. And so this is something that I'm using now for the retreat, that I'm going to be working with this astrologist. Her name is Esther. And what we want to do is for people to not only astral project, but also through hypnotherapy and reading their astral charts and their astral codes, help people to reprogram themselves in the astral world so they can have a better life. And right now, I mean, during the retreat, since it's going to be the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th of February, those are the dates that are related to the St. Valentine's Day. And actually, there's going to be a conjunction of Mars and Venus during those times. So it's like the right energy to work on getting people to reclaim the love within and without. And this is what we're going to be doing. Yeah.
Thoth is also showing me the three protectors of you are these super roided out like owls that are phosphorus white. And they're not just normal owls. They are roided. They look like owls that are pit bull in their their stance, their physicality is absolutely incredible. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah. I've been told these things before. Not always there are elves. Sometimes there are gnomes. I think what happens is that I connect myself a lot with the energies in nature when I go to nature. And when I go to nature, I always invoke the beings from the fourth dimension. In this case, the gnomes, the pygmies, the fairies, the elves, the elementals, right? And so the elves, they are the guardians of the fourth dimension. They are a race of beings that are obviously more advanced than us, and that's why also, in Tolkien's lore, in the Lord of the Rings, the elves are always like the most majestic creation of Ilúvatar, which is the god of the Lord of the Rings, because The elves, they come from, I think, mainly Nordic tales, Nordic lore. But the reality is that these are not just myths or tales. They are, when you become, when you start to awaken and you become aware of the fourth dimension, that's when you can see these beings.
Yeah. There's one thing that he's being very mindful of is this whole emerald tablet stuff. People are taking it very lightly, and what he's telling me is quite clear: is you need to be very mindful of the transition between the two, and especially the emerald tablets as verse to associating him as Hermes, and they are not the same. And he keeps repeating that. He is not Hermes.
Yeah.
There's no delusional line that perhaps maybe he morphs into that. And that's something that then reflects on anyone that looks at the emerald tablets will become hypnotized very deeply into this state. Now, that can be good and bad depending upon, and it's framed, the magic that's framed around the emerald tablets is quite clear. It's framed so that if you are moving in a duality, that duality will be reflectant on how deep your hypnosis, how he hypnotizes you into a deep state where your greatest fears will raise to the top and they will be realized in your reality. That sounds a little freaky, man.
Yeah. That's the work with the mirror. We talked that we refer that as that to the working with the mirror, and the Wixárika people, the indigenous people from my region, they when they go to the pilgrimages, to the sites where they do pilgrimages, like the site where we're going to have our retreat, they have altars, and sometimes they place these little mirrors in the altars, and so they represent the parts of you that you can't see, right? It's like it represents, let's say you want to see your back, you can't, you need a mirror, right? So what you're telling me about this duality, I believe it has to do with this practice of the mirror. Like, you always have to get into your darkness and understand your darkness, because that darkness is also part of you, is the duality.
Well, it uses that emerald tablet. If you just mindlessly, he's being very clear, don't mindlessly access the emerald tablets and just think that by accessing it and translating it to however you think it is. It's a very powerful text, scripture, a magical register of some kind. And if you, the individual, do not understand that, you will be prey to the magical architecture that's put into it that will basically, your fear will feed on it. And ultimately, all the things that you fear the most will be materialized in your 3D reality. That kind of sounds a little freaky to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it can be. It can be.
Everything that I see with Thoth is he doesn't play around, and he has little to no tolerance for flim-flammy, sort of indecisive behavior. You need to be firm on how you think and realize what it is and what degree of consciousness you're at, and continue to expand. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I that's not that energy of Thoth is a little bit intense for me. It's it's almost like there's no room for error when it comes to him. So he is all about, you either realize what I'm doing, and he's confessing it. If you read the emerald tablets, you will be hypnotized, and it will go deep into your unconscious. And if you are a duality type of person, it will feed from that duality, and all the things that you fear the most will be realized.
Yeah. Someone who already worked with Thoth a lot and went through that was Aleister Crowley.
Mm-hmm.
you've heard about Aleister Crowley. He
No.
was a mystic from the 20th century.
Hmm.
He was an English person, Englishman, and he talked a lot about Thoth. Thoth was the god that would manifest to him, and he brought a lot of knowledge from the esoteric, from the spiritual world. But in the end, he also couldn't work with the darkness that was probably his own darkness that was projected.
Well,
And
that's the trap that he set. The trap he set within the dimensions that you get to when you read that tablet, or you're even exposed to it. You don't even have to understand it. It immediately accesses you. And so we were talking before, I talked to you about those discs that were around him. What happens is he has these discs that circulate around him. They look like saucers, that they're like alien saucers about this thick. And they have 18 different, like you would call them, what do you call them? Holograms, images of either something that is formed in the shape of an object or some type of script. And they're round, like all around the disc. There's 18 of them scattered throughout the disc, and it's in solid gold. And so these discs are spinning around him at all times. And he has anywhere between 3 and 18 all the time. And so when someone accesses the Emerald Tablets, these discs obtain an unconscious part of their consciousness. They go right in there, and immediately he has access to their mental, emotional, and physical state.
wow.
It's kind of, and I mean, he's just saying that if you do not listen to him, what he's saying, you will fall prey to your worst nightmare.
Wow.
Which that doesn't sound that great. I don't know.
I don't want to fall into my worst nightmares.
Right. Well. I mean, it's all predicated on his design of his architecture of the magic around these Emerald Tablets is to prey on people's emotions. Mm-hmm. Does this make sense?
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. So the emotional component is how it enters their mental, emotional, and physical states.
Yeah.
And so then, of course, there's a leveling up, because the more people that, and it's really interesting because he's saying that all he did was use specific people as mouthpieces. There's a lot of people today in society that are speaking a lot on these Emerald Tablets, and he's using them as the mouthpiece to connect other people. So they're like fragments of a bigger a fractal pattern. And the more the collective, the more people that get hypnotized from the Emerald Tablets, the more and more he draws the energy in, and he's drawing them in every way, shape, or form. And they're just considering it unassuming. But if they don't understand that there's this level where he's like saying, hey, look, beware, the old buyer beware expression, where guess what? If you're not going to listen to me, your fears will be your unraveling. Because that's the design of the magic around what he's put into the Emerald Tablets. Does this make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
It's mind-blowing to me. But he doesn't have any, he has no, it's like that's part of the fault of being a human being, is that you're too curious, and your need to obtain information that doesn't do you any good is the first seed of destruction.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't know. That charge and chill that you're getting and I'm getting at the same time is like, whoa, it's tangible, it's real. And I mean, his presence is there, and he's very present in your aura, my friend. Wow. But it's like, it's representative of also the mastery of your understanding. So the more you understand and access dimensions that are going to be beyond this 3D, and then you use those skills, those hypnotic skills that you're obtaining, just so you know, from your access with Thoth. This is part of the skills that you're accessing, because this was something that he acquired and was realized 10, 20, 30,000 years ago when he started playing with all this type of magical access points, and he realized that this form of trance that he can basically put a spell on someone immediately and put them into a state, and he can access every aspect of them, from the little cell in their body all the way up to anything and everything they think, feel, or do. And that, to me, blows my mind. I don't know how great that is.
Yeah.
The skill set you have, though, is second to none. Your ability to help them access a higher dimension is through that association. So there's an affinity that comes with Thoth, and there's an appreciation that Thoth has for you, because you have, I don't like to use realm of man words, but you have respected, you have honored, you have valued his presence in everything that you've experienced. And through that association and that relationship is built. Does this make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And when we talk about teaching people to travel across dimensions, I think that's like part of the future, because people want to experience things, and once you learn to travel across dimensions, that's when you realize that it's part of your right as a human being, and you start to embrace it, you start to learn it, and that's when you start awakening. And that's the purpose of this life for me, for people to awaken into the higher realities. And so how do you do that? Well, you do that through experiencing something that does not belong to this world, but it's higher, such as dimensions.
Yeah, I mean, and that's it. I mean, when you express it, I teach people to reflect dimensions in this realm, right? So how do I do that? For example, I had someone, and this is a type of the way we construct magic within Taoism. Someone had an issue with their mother. She went into a coma just recently, within the last 48 hours. And how I normally create a situation, first I tap into the person that's in the coma, and they give me the green or red light as to where they want to go. Are you now ready to transition to the next realm, or you want to still be present in this one? Now, this particular person, the mother, said, no, I don't want to go. So I told the daughter she's not going anywhere, even though the doctor said, hey, she's in a coma. She's going to probably not come out of it. And so I told her to position herself. I gave her a few incantations with her and her family. And then I sprinkled some fairy dust, the things that I do. The next day, miraculously, poof, this woman comes out of a coma, and the doctor's like, this is unbelievable. Her vitals are improving. Excuse me. I don't know how to decline. Let me decline this. I apologize for that. Yeah. And so her vitals are improving minute by minute, hour by hour, and they don't understand how that works. And so this is just accessing consciousness and affecting a 3D reality. And this is what you speak on. This is what I speak on. This is what you teach people. I teach people. I want you to be, my goal is to have someone operate in this 3D reality from a 5 and above. And that then makes anything possible. There are no limits. So, you do something like this. I've seen miracles like that in the last 30 years I've been teaching people. If I had to be really, really honest with you, at least between 200 and 500 times in my lifetime.
Wow.
And so that's just part of the course. Or moreover, when you access that consciousness, you will see physical flesh shift before your very eyes. So, if you watch it, the cycle of that high dimensional shift is the tissue starts to wiggle, and it starts to be like you're having an hallucination in your way you're viewing whatever the object is, and it will wiggle and shift and shift and wiggle and shift and wiggle and shift until it reforms itself to its original state before it was traumatized, before it was damaged, before whatever the event was. And that's just part of healing. Yes. And so, this stuff there's no limitation. The way you access it, the way I access it, there's no limit to it. We just need to embrace the reality that this is the simulation. This is not real. None of this is real. And the second you identify as your true self, as source itself, it becomes realized. And that's just what, from my experience, it's happened so many times that, I don't have numbers. They're in the thousands.
Yeah.
And it continually replicates itself that way. And that's part of, and I love the fact that you have this inner power of state of consciousness, because I love to use that, because a lot of people are very fearful of just the idea of hypnosis or trance, because they feel as though they're being controlled. Now, when I normally do that for fun. I'm out here in Nevada, Las Vegas, so sometimes I'll go on the streets and do like drive by, covert like hypnosis, where it starts with the words, because everything is letters, numbers, symbols, and you literally are accessing someone's DNA strand instantaneously with the words alone, and the probability of those words translate into a state that someone gets into. So when you can take them into a state and shift their mental, emotional state in the same second, you know that you are in another dimension. It's impossible not to be. So if someone comes to me and they have PTSD and they've had it for 30 years and it's gone in 30 seconds and it's never going to return, and 6 months later they're still saying, where is it? It's that shift of consciousness. Yeah. And that access point that's so powerful. And man, you are just a beam of refreshing light, my friend, because so many people want to dampen the access point. And part of the next level that we're looking at in this year is not death and destruction. My teacher, Latsu, which I channel all the time, every day, he did a prediction for 2024. It's on my YouTube channel. And it's like, basically, he's like, human beings get so caught up in the semantics of it's about them. It's like, as a human being, we're going, hang on a second, we're a grain of sand asking the beach, what's going on? What's next? Where are we going? It's in the scope of the universe. The universe is immediate. There is no moral compass. It's not happening. It's present now. And so when we get caught up in the semantics of what's going to happen to me, is the world going to be over? Are we going to be destroyed? Is the financial system going to collapse? None of the above is going to happen. We're just feeding into this fear. And that programming is how the masses are being controlled, in my opinion. And Lutz made it very clear. That was his outcome for 2024. Unfortunately, death and destruction, brimstone and fire falling out of the sky is not going to happen. It's the high level of consciousness where you and I are leading people into a realization of how powerful they are. Their innate power is within them. Because, when I teach people to astral plane travel, I call it soul projection, spirit projection, and then we go into shape shifting and shadow magic and all that stuff. What happens is you are going inside. You're not going out. You're not really going out. It's a dimension. You're all one thing. In concept, yes, we're going out, but we're not going out. We're going in. Does this make sense?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I always, that's one of the principles that I also teach, that basically the whole universe is inside of you. And so it's like, Hermes used to say, and I'm not saying that because of Thoth, there's no association, like you say.
Yeah.
But he used to say, as above, so below, as within, so without, something like that. I don't know the exact phrase in English.
Yeah. That's the core message of mentalism per se, right? Mm-hmm. Everything is the mind. And it's sort of like diluted a little bit today because there's these illusionists, magicians and whatnot. And I love all that stuff. I think it's fantastic because it ignites someone's imagination, and that's the seed of reality. Unfortunately, magicians, illusionists, mentalists today don't believe it. They just think it's a sleight of hand trick. They don't understand that dimensional shift is actually real. They just use little tricks to assume that they're accessing someone's mind, where you and I are really living this stuff. And so have you ever heard of ideomotor response?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so ideomotor response is the transmission of energy through your physical body, which would be reflected of using pendulums or tarot cards or those tuning fork things, right?
Yeah.
So when you attune to these things, they transmit your thoughts into the object, right? So ideomotor is like a degree of understanding. So say, for example, a highly developed like magician or illusionist, or someone that is using NLP, linguistic programming, neuro-linguistic programming, they start with that seed and then they go into transmitting through you. So they suggest things that are going on in their mind. They've created what we call a psychodynamic loop, and transmitting the thoughts into yours, and then ask you a question and you're answering what they've already transmitted because you think your thoughts are yours. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so the ideomotor response is then reflected of many things. So, for example, I can do this with anyone. So, say, for example, it's John Smith. I meet him in a hotel and I get them to take an object, anything that they want. I don't care what it is. A can, a coin, an object of theirs. And I see them in a hotel and I go, okay, I want you to take that object. Don't tell me what it is. And then I want you to go and place it somewhere in the hotel. And I'm going to find it. And they're like, sure you are. And what happens is the second you see that, the old expression, you cannot unsee, what you have seen, you cannot unsee, is an instant transmission from, well, it's actually from here, but from here. And so I can connect in with your transmission of what you see, and I can follow through the ideomotor response. So you get to, I feel a higher transmission or lower transmission just by following their physical body or their thoughts. It depends on the degree of sensory perception. I generally don't get too much into it, but I'll do like, okay, I want you to stand still. And I'm going to go, I want you to turn to the left or turn to the right. The transmission of energy will either be greater or less. And then it will show me how to follow wherever they were from the first time that I met them. And they ran all around the hotel. They went to the 87th floor of the hotel, put this thing in a pillow slip in a room at the other end of the hotel. And we will go right up to that room and find it from the transmission. Wow. And that's just ideomotor response. And that's something that we all have connection with. A lot of these magicians dismiss it. Psychokinesis, telekinesis, all these types of things they think is hokey. But then reading someone's mind by being able to, because what they do is they stage this. So it's like very easy to read someone's mind and to go, okay, I want you to imagine this and get it visually in your mind, your PIN number. And so they allure someone into thinking their PIN number. They attach it, look at their micro expressions and the ideomotor response that they're having, and they're able to write down their PIN number, go, here you go, here's your PIN number. And people are like, whoa. And, it's not very difficult once you train in it. And this is part of sensory perception. And this is the stuff that blows my mind because we all have access to it, but you have to learn the techniques so that they become you become proficient. You have to be able to repeat it. It's okay to do it once and go, oh, I had this vision that this was going to happen. And on this day, I was going to win $1 million, and it happens, but then you're never able to replicate it. And I think that's what's most important about what you do is that you teach people how to replicate that state of consciousness so that they can do it all the time, and then start raising the bar by getting deeper sensory perception so that they're able to access states of information. Does that make sense?
Yeah. This is what we're doing. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And so that's what, in definition, what astral projection is. And what we do in Taoism is we train in Nigong. Nigong is the internal alchemy of moving energy with your mind. Mm-hmm. And so we distribute thoughts, feelings, and emotions equally in every dimension. So, the premise is everything is taking place in all dimensions at once. Which one do you have your attention on? This is what it's going to be realized in, right? That in concept is nothing more than a concept. In actual reality, you are operating in all dimensions at once. And once you project that energy equally, you're able to do the alteration that makes us so powerful. And there you go. That's real. Just like the girl that saw you and went, wow.
Yeah.
I know you. Not only do I know you, we've had a conversation. And it's like, then that triggers what you experience. And then and you get the recall and go, whoa, this is true. This is actually took place. And so that trance, the one thing that you have a superpower on that Hermes is, whoa, he's coming in right now. Now Hermes is telling me that the other, actually, this is really weird. You were Hermes in another life, and Thoth is mentoring you, even though there's a separation between the two. Does this even make any sense to you? This is crazy stuff, man.
Well, I wouldn't, it's like it would be like too much of a thing for me to believe that I was Hermes. Like maybe, it's something too powerful. I don't want to have that responsibility.
Well, I'm telling you, and your superpower is some ambalistic state. And so what does that mean? Somnambulistic is the deepest state of trance that you can get yourself into. That's the stuff where you turn people into putty. When I put someone in a somnambulistic state, I wipe your memory and you forget your name. I can make you look at me and think that I am Justin Bieber. This is a somnambulistic state. And you have that ability, and you can do it like this. You don't have to play to it. You don't have to work at it. And that's really interesting because we've gone from Thoth telling us, I am not Hermes, to a realization that Hermes, you are an incarnate, reincarnate, whatever you want to call it, of Hermes. And that's like, the thing is, you can feel that in here. And that's the thing. Your whole energy center, your middle energy center lights up. Your humility is, you have to get past the humility. The ego is not even real. Realizing and transmitting at that frequency is that part where I don't want that power. I'm not so sure. It's not about a negative experience. It's about helping people access higher levels of consciousness with that very power. But I always find this. I find this that when I come across people and they're associating themselves in certain types of dimensions, that they were in some way that particular spirit that they were working with in another lifetime, and then they're reincarnated in this lifetime. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's mind-blowing. So imagine that, man. Not only do you have the mentoring of Thoth, but you are Hermes. Whoa, that is mind-blowing to me on another whole level, because there should be a separation. There's another person out there right now who is speaking heavily on the Emerald Tablets. I'm not mentioning names, but he's actually a rival of Thoth's, yet he doesn't realize that. And so he's talking about the Emerald Tablets nonstop, everywhere, all over the place, yet he's a rival, and that's inciting Thoth at a whole nother level, and he has no idea, and he's embracing it. He's talking about Thoth, this is great, this is that, and he's going, you are a rival of mine. Another alchemist in past lives that attempted to somehow alter all the power that he had through other spells, using all these different entities, and of course failed. But this was over 10,000 years ago, and he is actually a reincarnation of that in this lifetime. He doesn't know this, and he's going on about Thoth and how great he is. It's mind-blowing, my friend.
Wow. So interesting.
Well, what's interesting is when I said that to you, that incident resonation that it had with you here is second to none. And that's something that you have to process. It's like, I don't tell people how to process or what to do or what to think, but it starts to correlate. You know how it is. It's like, hang on, whoa, I'm going to digest this for a minute. And all of a sudden, you're going to start accessing your skills at a much higher level just with that realization. And that somnambulistic state is like a superpower, because that's trance at the highest level, man. That's trance where you get to a state that you alter all dimensions at once. And that's something that most people claim to do. It's funny. Have you ever heard of this person, Dolores Cannon?
No.
She spent like 30 or 40 years as a hypnotherapist type of thing. And she started to do life regressions using the somnambulistic state. And she accessed these entities that would speak through her clients and give her information. Anyway, she's kind of like in that same place of coming to me, talking to me about, the way that they practice her technique. It's called quantum healing, something another. And there's a lot of people that do it. There are tons of people. Yet the confession is their techniques are not what she taught people back in the day. And so people have shaved off the way that they do whatever it is that she does, her specific technique. And so what she's saying is there's 5 stages to her technique to get into the deepest state, so they get in the information. And people are only using 3 of those stages, and they're not going as deep. And it's so funny her saying that, because I've actually had people confess that the messaging and information is coming at a much lighter level, where people are not getting into this deep state where they are so deep that it takes a moment for them to realize that they're in another dimension. And this is all the power of somnambulistic. This is something that you do all day. And I mean, just realizing that with who you are, now it makes sense to me. And I know the humility is probably a lot. Hey, listen, that struck me a little bit, because Thoth was very present, and he was transmuting and transforming through your shape shifting in front of me. And then all of a sudden, Hermes came out of nowhere, boom. And that's where it emitted this golden white light from your whole aura. Your whole body is lit now, and it's all connected. Every single energy center you have is gold white light, and it's the representation of Hermes and all the information you access. Have you ever had any sort of like affinity for him at all?
I mean, not particular. Like I need to really look more into this and process it. So it's great that you see me as Hermes, but like I said, it's like I need to realize that for myself.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot. What's going to happen is the second you go to any of his principles, any of his teaching, it's going to hit you right here.
Yeah.
And you're going to get a ringing in your ears that are at a decibel point where you can't get rid of it until you have a greater understanding. So that ringing will get higher. I mean, you're experiencing a little bit of it now, but it will stay there, and it's not going to diminish, which is just a frequency shift, right? But until you realize what it is that you're experiencing, and it will come from your own teaching, your own material. You look over Hermes stuff, you're going to have a mind blower. So that density of that energy will continue to gather in the third eye area, as you would put it. Within Taoism, we have actually 9 eyes running from your chin all the way up to the byway at the top of your head. So that's just one access point. A third eye is good, but it's not all things.
Wow, that's so deep.
This is just exciting. I love this stuff because, man, you can't make this stuff up. It repeats itself, and I have it repeat in my 3D reality all the time, all day, every day. I'm experiencing this stuff when it comes to magic, healing, manifestation, and it's realized in my life itself through this evidence-based experience that makes it real. It's one thing if you're just having it up here and I'm seeing this and I'm doing that. I just, a while back, I had a guy who was had a huge affinity with Jesus Christ and God, right? But it wasn't Christ consciousness that some people would talk about, because that's a whole different amplitude of energy, completely different than Jesus Christ. And so you have this guy, and I'm looking at his aura and I'm seeing Jesus like, well, how did you know I have an affinity with Jesus? And I'm like, well, I don't know. He's just admitted from your field. It's coming out of your middle energy center. Your, as you would call it, your fourth chakra, your heart chakra. It's being transmitted. And so his whole image would envelop the guy's body. And then his reincarnation of who he was in this lifetime came out. And I go, and he goes, listen, I'm Christian. I like the idea of reincarnation, but I have no evidence to prove to me that it's real. I'm like, okay. I said, I'll tell you what, why don't we do this? I'll ask you right now, if you had to think of who you are a reincarnation of, who would you think it was? And he was about to answer. I go, stop for a minute. I see who you are, and I'm going to tell you right now, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong. And he goes, okay, you're Martin Luther King. And he almost died. He's like, that's exactly who I thought I was. If I had to think of anyone, I'm Martin Luther King. And he's like freaking out. 10,000% accurate, because it actually transmits. When you look at this guy, he literally is like a spiritual leader. His spoken word is listened to by thousands of people. When he speaks, people listen, and action is taken to form change in communities. And it's just part of what he does from a social media aspect. But it's like, wow, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's so exciting, because you literally can see who he is through his transmission, and just the way he holds himself. That is who he is. And so I appreciate your going, holy crap, this is a lot to deal with. And I'm not going, listen, you need to believe this. No, your validation will be yours. You'll be like, holy moly, I'm on a whole different level. The second you take charge and look at your information, all your teachings, it's going to boom, raise the frequency, and the density of energy will make your head feel like a bobblehead. And it's going to happen fast. It'll be the second you set your eyes on your material. And then all of a sudden they'll be like, whoa, what do I do now? And it's not about, it's got nothing to do with an ego flex. It's just, that's who you are. And you will come to that realization. I don't need to tell you. I've just given you the seed. You've come out, you've shared it with me. And I'm like, okay, wow, that seems completely off center. It doesn't really sync with me, because I haven't really gone for that information. But as we both know, delving into the astral plane, you shift your consciousness. Once you get a validation, what you go out to and see changes your whole reality. You come back, and the next day you have a level of consciousness that is raised the bar up to here, and it's never the same. It just keeps going up, and it keeps getting wider and wider and wider. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I thank you for that vision, and I'll look into that.
Yeah. No, just take it for what it is. It's very present. It's very real. And, you will measure it. It's from here. It doesn't have anything to do with what I'm saying. When you realize it, it will be your realization. It'll be your confirmation. It'll be your validation. Your truth is the only truth you need to be concerned with. It has nothing to do with me. None whatsoever. I just share with, and all these energies come to me. The spirits come to me, and they're like, here's info on this, here's info on that. When you channel this way, I've been teaching people to channel for 30 years. You get to be a tuning fork, and you can start validating. I'll either transmit something that they give me an information, or I only really channel directly my teachers. So if I have a spirit come to me and give me information, I can have a conversation with them. So I see them as I see you. Very vivid, very real. But I have a conversation with them. I don't actually transmit them through my physical body. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. It's wild, my friend. You are just like humming. You are bursting. You are blowing up. Man, my eyes are burning right now. Your aura just amplified.
Wow, that's wild.
Well, it's It's all energy, man. And just looking at you, I see everything stays right here, because this is the thing that is one of the most powerful tools that you have. It's the truth.
Mm.
And everything you speak is the truth. That is wild.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, my friend.
That's what we do, man. That's the journey that we're on, is just expressing all this stuff. And I can see from your expression that you're appreciating our interaction, because it's all a collective. We all do this. We all attune ourselves. We all develop at our own pace. And there is no right or wrong. There's no way in, no way out. I've had students that are like, I want to feel energy. And 5 minutes later, they're feeling energy and they're starting to heal people and do this. All you need to do is be in the presence of that frequency. It changes immediately. I don't tell people, guess what? You're going to be studying and training in this stuff for 30 years. No, you could literally replicate what I access instantaneously just from being in the presence of the frequency that I transmit. It has nothing to do with anything else. It's like the 4-minute mile. Understand this concept? So
No.
the 4-minute mile concept is, someone broke a 4-minute mile. It was a world record, and it had never been done before in all of history, right? So for 100 years, someone had been trying to break that 4-minute mile. They finally broke the 4-minute mile. Within days, tens, hundreds, thousands of people were breaking the 4-minute mile, because that's all it takes, is shifting of your consciousness to validating that it's real to you, and then it becomes real.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, so that's why it's so powerful. And from a neurological perspective, we get all sciencey on us. The mirror neurons within the base of your brain, the base of your skull, is how you mirror everything that is taking place in this reality. So if you want to tune into someone's pace and lead of their frequency and signature, I do this with my kids. I have 6 kids from 6 weeks old to 11 years old, and we go to sleep all at the same time. And they it's like I've been keeping them in tune for their whole lifetime. So it's like, oh, how do you get 6 kids to go to sleep at the same time? I just lay down, turn the lights out, and I move around the room, attuning my breath with their breath and their respiration. I just go one after another, and I collectively collect all of their respiration, and then I start to slow mine down, and theirs slows down with mine, and then I just put them into sleep, and they all go to bed.
Wow.
And that's the synchronicity. That's a superpower that you have, my friend. That whole you delving into hypnosis and all that stuff, you're going to find some crazy stuff. I mean, you're aware of some of these skills, but when you dip into it and really master what you just recall what you already know, I'm excited. I can't wait to see what happens, because it's going to be a wild ride for you. Your realization is going to level up to a whole level. And, that's what it takes. That's all it takes, is that synchronization. I imagine that's what you do when you get groups. How many people are coming out in February? Do you know?
We have a limit of 12 attendees.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so when does it close?
Probably 2 weeks before, around the end of January. That's when we're thinking about closing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I'm going to be excited. I want all your information in the socials so that everyone can get hold of you. And
at escapefromthematrix.com.
Okay. Escape from the Matrix, and I'll put all your socials also in the. How are we going for time? Are we good for time, or?
I think it's I haven't eaten.
Yeah. No, absolutely. All right, so let's go over any sort of closing information. What would you like to share with the audience in relation to what is your nature? What do you believe is the nature of consciousness?
Well, the nature of consciousness, to me, it doesn't belong to this world. It belongs to the higher dimensions. It belongs to the realms where there is no physicality, no form, and it's part of God. We are all part of God, and we ourselves, we also have an inner God. So basically, we're gods having a human experience, and by exploring this dimension, we also um, are helping this consciousness to self-realize itself, to know itself. Because in the higher dimensions where there's no time and no space, this consciousness has always known itself. But, the illusion of time makes us think that, we still have to know ourselves. And we live in a world that has time. So that's how it is. But we come to a point where we'll have enough experiences here. We'll understand what's happening, and that's when we'll realize that our consciousness is the consciousness of God, and that's what consciousness is for me.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful, my friend. This has been a real pleasure. And so I'll put all your socials down underneath this podcast. I'm blown away by your offerings, your insight, your mastery, and all the things that you bring to this 3D reality to help people get out, out.
And I'm also impressed and humbled by your skills and this great opportunity of sharing your knowledge and inviting me to your podcast.
Brother, I can't thank you enough. So I want to, in closing, just thank you for everything that you share with me and everything you share with my audience and everything you share with everyone in this realm, and understanding how powerful, ultimately helping people recall their true power, the true source of who they really are. And I mean, collectively, this is the consciousness that you and I speak of. And many people in this space let their ego drive them. And they're not really truly looking for this. They're not looking to help awaken people. It's all about really framing themselves as opposed to you. You being awake and aware of the true nature of all things is the ultimate goal. We replicate. Yes. Profound things take place. It's it's wild. You're going to look back at this, and I'm going to watch it again and go, "Whoa!" There's some crazy moments there. Yeah. Right now, your aura is burning my eyes out. Wow. And your fourth chakra, or what you would call your fourth chakra, your fourth energy center, is just a phosphorus golden white light, and it is just it's in basically enveloped your whole physical body, your whole aura. It's just this phosphorus gold white light, and it's just pulsating from your center.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
And, man, I mean, that's you, my friend. I'm just grateful that the Tao brought you into my life, and that we create this collective. And I want to bring you aware to. I'm creating a consciousness expo this year in Las Vegas, and it'll be in September. I'd like to invite you to it. I want you to really be a part of that.
I'd love to go.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. Just bringing like-minded people, bringing the information to the world, and helping us, master these skills so that people can replicate and go inside and truly understand it. And there's a part from the scripture that we use, the Tao Te Ching, and one of the incantations is quite clear. Let the man who has never left his village, let him know that he has seen the world. And that's everything inside everything. Wow. That's where it is. We don't have to go anywhere.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. I mean, sometime I'll send you a copy of my Tao Te Ching, and take a look. It doesn't hurt just to
of course.
I would love scripture. I love it, brother. I love it. Again, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I can't thank you
so much, man.
And we will see you soon. I want to do a number 2 after you finish your immersion in the jungle. I'd love to have you back on the podcast. Let's go over all the crazy things, because it's going to be wild ride.
Yeah, it's going to be wild. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting.
I'd
love to be back.
I might. Yeah, I want you to share everything with us and all the adventures and all the awakenings, because you're going to discover some crazy stuff. Even more, all the stuff that you already. I mean, it's pretty clear every time you go there, something new happens, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. How many times have you been there now?
Probably like 20 times.
Wow.
Yeah, I go there often. I love it.
Yeah. Is it far from where you are?
Around 2 hours.
Oh, that's not too bad.
No.
Wow. That's crazy. All right, brother. Again, I want you to go get some sustenance. I want to thank you for sharing your time and your expertise and mastery with my audience. And we're going to get ready for part 2 in a month or 2.
Absolutely.
We'll go over it.
Absolutely, my friend. Thank you so much.
All right. Love you, brother.
Love you too.
Okay. And I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing, and I'll see you on the next one, guys.